Well, yesterday I had left discussing about the Chitta Vikshepa Sahabhuva, talking about Dukh, Dormanasya, Angamejayatva and Swas Praswasa. Concluding that the concept that has been presented by Patanjali here proves very clearly that every problem that is occurring in the body is not physical, it is psychophysical, which is very clearly presented in this sutra by the word especially the Angamejayatva and Swas Praswasa. Well, these are the Chitta Vikshepas and Vikshepa Sahabhuvas. And also I said to you that these Vikshepa Sahabhuvas are very gross in nature and they are visible and you can identify the person that the person is suffering from Chitta Vikshepa. Let us go further. Patanjali says, Tat Pratishedhartham Ek Tattvabhyasa. Again the word abhyasa has appeared. Ek Tattvabhyasa. What is that Ek Tattva for the abhyasa? It is really a problem among the various commentators and also various modern yoga teachers, including me. What is that Ek Tattvabhyas should be understood in more logical way. People while talking about this, they say that you can go for the first 4 limbs of yoga known as Dukh, Yama, Niyam, Asana and Pranayam for the Dukh, Dormanas, Angamejayat and Swas Praswas respectively as abhyas to remove this all 4. There is also another method or another group who say that no, Ek Tattva should mean the methods that has been presented by Patanjali in the forthcoming sutras. Out of these forthcoming sutra or methods that has been presented by Patanjali, out of these 7 methods, because 7 sutras have been given by Patanjali for the sake of Chitta Prasadan as it is said. Any one you can take up and you can practice and thereby you can become free from the Vikshepa Sahabhuvas or you can be free from the Chitta Vikshepas. Well, again, the problem is that whether all the practices that has been presented by Patanjali in the 7 sutras are of the similar nature or the same type or having some difference. If you read the sutra number 133, I think, you can see the sutras. In the first, that is number 33 sutras, he says, Maitri Karuna Mudito Pekshanam Sukh Dukh Punya Punya Visyanam Bhavanata Chitta Prasadanam. And in the next sutra he says, Prachhadan Vidharanabhyam Va Pranasya. There are a lot of problem in this sutra. I don't know whether you have come across this type of problem that I am finding, and this was creating a problem since long. Patanjali uses the word Chitta Prasadanam in the sutra number 133. Maitri Karuna Mudito Pekshanam Sukh Dukh Punya Punya Visyanam Bhavanata Chitta Prasadanam. And the next sutra he uses Va. Pachhardan Vidharanabhyam Va Pranasya. That is, Chitta Prasadan can be attained through the technique that is mentioned in the sutra number 133, or it can also be attained through the technique mentioned in the next sutra known as 134. Prachhadan Vidharanabhyam Va Pranasya. This is very unique. And then when he goes to the sutra number 35, he starts quite a new thing, that the word Chitta Prasadan disappears there. And he starts the word Manasa Sthiti Nibandhanam. Have you find that? And when we are saying that there are 5 techniques of Chitta Prasadan, 7 techniques of Chitta Prasadan, we do not take into consideration that the last of the last 5 sutras of the 7 sutras are actually the method for Manasa Sthiti Nibandhan, not exactly the Chitta Prasadan. Or Chitta Prasadan has not been used. Or the other thing, we will have the feeling that Patanjali was not very careful in using the terms and very loose in his uses. You know, some of your friends have asked this type of questions. He uses the word ahanka, asmita at different places. Are they have the similar connotations? He uses similar such words at different places and having the same meaning like that, like the word vitarka. You find the word vitarka in the sutra number 117. You find the sutra number you find the same use of the word vitarka in the context of savitarka, and you find also the word used in the context of vitarka, hinsadaya, kritikarita, anumodita. At least 3 times he uses the word vitarka. Are they all having the same connotation or having their contextual understanding? That is creating a problem. Well, this is just, I wanted to refer that, see, there are certain discrepancies even in understanding the sutras on Chitta Prasadam. When I started analyzing the sutras that are available on the name of Chitta Prasadam, I found that if at all the Manasa Sthiti Nibandhan technique is also taken as Chitta Prasadam or technique for Chitta Prasadam, then all the 7 sutras combined gives 3 types of technique only. The first technique is, as the Sutra 133 says, Maitri Karuna, which stands for develop a positive attitude in life. So Maitri Karuna Mudito Pekchanam Sukduk Punya Punya Visyanam, it stands for giving a message that make your life positive. Think positive, do positive. Do not get involved in the things which are not good. Keep yourself away from bad, non-virtuous. This is what is the positive attitude of the life that has been presented by Patanjali. Develop friendliness towards happy persons. Develop compassion towards the person who is suffering. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. These are the positive attitude. The second sutra that has been given as an alternative for the Chitta Prasadam is Pracharadan Vidharanabhyam va Pranasya. I really find it that this particular sutra can be explained in 2 ways. But for me, I believe that the one technique is more important over the other technique. Why I am saying it? Because I am finding the similar practice even in the latter yoga texts. And that is the reason that I support the one technique that is as accepted as the meaning of Pracharadan Vidharanabhyam va Pranasya. He says Pracharadana, forceful exhalation, and Vidharan. Vidharan can be understood in 2 ways. The first way is that after exhaling forcefully, retain it out only. Dharana, Vidharana. Retain it, just retain. Dharan is retention. Now, this retention, how people have associated it with that of retain it out. I don't think that Vidharan has that understanding. Although you will find this type of meaning also. So, forceful exhalation followed by the exhalation, the air that you have exhaled should be kept out, retained out, is the meaning of the word sutra Pracharadan Vidharanabhyam va Pranasya. The other meaning also is possible. Pracharadan, forceful exhalation, and then Vidharan, retain it in a special way. Visheshena dharanam. Visheshena dharanam means in a special way, try to take it in or let it get in. You know the practice of Kapalabhati? That practice of Kapalabhati is exactly the same that we are doing. Forceful exhalation, and then we are not taking the air in, we allow the air to go in, rush in, simply we relax the abdominal muscles, that's all. We are not taking the air in Kapalabhati. It goes in, it rushes in. So this is the another meaning. But what I am finding that through the second sutra of Chitta Prasadan, what Patanjali wants to indicate that for the sake of the pacification of mind, you should do some respiratory exercises. A composite understanding of this sutra, rather than simply say, do Kapalabhati. If you make it understand as, do some respiratory exercise, it will be better. And undoubtedly, you know that in order to pacify the mind, Kapalabhati is the best practice. And that is why we usually suggest to practice pranayam only after the practice of Kapalabhati. Because the Kapalabhati prepares you ready for the practice of pranayam. If you analyze the next 5 sutras, I believe that the next 5 sutras are actually the state that you attain as a result of the practice of earlier 2, that is respiratory exercise as well as through positive attitude. Try to maintain that stage. Mansa sthiti nibandhini. Whatever the mental state that you have created as a result of your positive attitude or as a result of your practice of respiratory exercises, maintain that mental state, and for the sake of maintaining that mental state, it is necessary that you should do some meditation, some dhyana. And for that, Patanjali, in the next 5 sutras, has given 5 techniques for the sake of Manasasthiti Nibandhana. Starting from Visayavati Pravrittir Utpanna Manasasthiti Nibandhani, Vishoka va Jyotismati, Vitaraga Vishayam va Chittam, Swapna Nidra Jnana Lambanam va. These are the techniques that can help a person in stabilizing the mind that has been achieved by virtue of the practice of the earlier 2, known as the positive attitude as well as the respiratory exercise. This seems to be a logical understanding of the sutras that has been presented. Now, question arises further. Even the sutras that has been given are not so easily acceptable and understandable. Visayavati Pravrittir Utpanna. Is there any time, any point of time our pravritti is not Visayavati? We are always Visayavati. And he says that Visayavati Pravritti Utpanna, if it comes, if it is generated, it means that he wanted to speak something more. It is not only Visayavati. It is not only that you are attached to the or attracted to the objects, but you are attracted to the objects with intensity is called Visayavati. Not simply that attracted to the objects. Visayavati Pravrittir Utpanna, when it comes, intensity comes, Manasasthiti Nibandhan, it locks the mind at one particular point. It will not allow you to move anywhere. Well, when I started reading, although this is the commentator's view, not I am not having any thought on that particular point, excepting that Patanjali has simply written this much. The commentators have tried to understand that this Vishaya is related with our subtle elements. And these subtle elements are located in the mouth and also the nose. They are the tip of the nose, the tip of the tongue, the middle of the tongue, the root of the tongue, and then upper palate. These are the 5 points that Patanjali's commentators have suggested that you think of these 5 points one by one, or think of one point one time. Whatever point you are thinking, the subtle element related with that point will be under your control. Just as, for example, you are trying to concentrate upon the tip of the nose and meditate upon it. As a result of the meditation upon the tip of the nose, you will develop a good control over the smell element in themselves, or the smell. The teacher who was speaking or talking with me, he used to say that, even in modern times, there are certain jugglers, magicians, who say which type of smell you want to smell, and he will create that smell in the hall. He said it is all a type of practice and a type of extraordinary power that can be achieved with not much practice. But well, I have not got that practice. I tried it. This is possible, maybe, that you can create the smell. You can have the control over the smell that you want. That is also true about the taste, about the color, about the touch, and also earth, water, fire, air, and ether, sound. And he said that these are the 5 points that one should take, and it can help you in stabilizing your mind. After this, he says, Vishoka va Jyotismati. Concentrate upon some light, and the light should be free from any type of sorrow, paining. There should not be any sorrow associated with that light. Pain should not be associated with that light. It is very difficult, that when we are giving Tratak, the main purpose of selecting a candle light for the sake of practicing Tratak is that candle light is away from any type of the association of pain in it. And that's why we give and select the candle light for the sake of Tratak. But suppose somebody has got some painful experience with that candle light, he will not be able to do Tratak at all. It means that the object that you are selecting should not have any type of painful experiences associated with it. And that is, Patanjali also says, Vishoka va Jyotismati. Now you have to concentrate upon the light which is away from any type of painful experience. This is again, Patanjali says, it is said like that in the heart, this is very interesting. What is the locus of Chitta? We say locus of Chitta is somewhere here. But Patanjali is not accepting this. Patanjali says locus of Chitta is here. Hridaye Chitta Samvit. In the chapter 3 in the Vibhutipad, he says like that. If you make sanjam on your heart region, you will get the knowledge of the Chitta. Hridaye Chitta Samvit. It means that it is somewhere here, not anywhere else. And it is also said, it is, the latter commentators also write, it is a type of light here. And concentrate upon that light inside your body, inside the heart. You will get that extraordinary thing, and you will get the Vishoka Vajyotismati. It will pacify your mind. It will restrict your mind, and it will not allow the mind to move anywhere. The sutra that is really under the discussion, and very much people have read and written on this, Swapna Nidra Jnana Lambanam Va. I think you missed the thing that I wanted to refer on my first lecture or second lecture. I don't remember exactly, it was in first or second. That whether the sleep should have dream or not. It was the point of discussion for me. And on this particular discussion, I had said that the sutra says there is pratyayasya bhava or abhavasya pratyaya. There is absence of experience or experience of absence. Both the things are equal. There is absence of experience, it means that there is no dream, and there is experience of absence, that is not possible. What are you going to experience the absence? So those two are meaning. But I said that while quoting this particular sutra, I said that I don't agree with this understanding. And abhav, I have given a different understanding, if you remember. And also I said that if the dream is excluded from the concept of Nidra, then how I am going to justify the sutra that is there in the context of Chitta Prasadan? Swapna Nidra Jnana Lambanam Va. The knowledge that you attain in the dream when you have slept, or sleep dream that you are usually dreaming in the sleep. This is not possible. So Patanjali is on one point says that there is no dream in the sleep, and the other point he says that there will be, you get the knowledge or make it support what you get the knowledge in your dream. Both the things cannot go together. So we must accept that there is some dream content in the sleep. We may not or may remember it. Along with that, I had said one more point, if you remember. I don't want to because it goes back. So it is not so good that I should speak and waste my time on this. But just for you, I said that Praman is such a knowledge which is documented and which is existing. I said that Vikalpa is a knowledge which is only documented but not existing. And Nidra is such a knowledge which is neither documented and not existing, yet you get the knowledge. It is not existing and it is not documented. That is why abhava. Abhavasya pratyaya means that such a abhava which is not documented and not existing, you get the knowledge of that. In Vikalp, it is only documented, not existing at all. And in Praman, it is existing and it is documented, both. Then Patanjali wants to say there is one more technique that Patanjali has given here, is that Vitaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. I am not giving the answer. It is up to you, and I have given this and my own understanding that this dream, this Nidra is also having dream or content. And that is accumulated in the form of sometime you remember under the grip of, the remembrance, memory of the Nidra, memory of the dream depends on which guna is dominant to you when you are sleeping. And then accordingly you are experiencing the different type of dream that you are experiencing in the sleep. Then comes Vitaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. Then again he says that, okay, if you are unable to do all these things, go for the another technique that I am mentioning here, is that Vitaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. Vitaraga Vishayam Va Chittam. Vitrag, one who has conquered, completely away, dissociated, rag, attachment. One who has completely dissociated himself or herself from the attachment, make it a subject of your meditation. And that is also called the method which can take you to the Chitta Prasadan. Now, Vitaraga Vishayam is your selection. Whom you consider Vitaraga. Patanjali does not say that you can accept this A, B, C, D, E. He has no suggestion for that. It is up to your faith, your Shraddha. You can make any person that you feel that he is a person, he is a Vitaragi, he has complete dissociation from the objects of the world. You can select him for your meditation. It may be either the Ramakrishna Paramahans, or it can be Ramana Maharshi, it may be Swami Vivekananda, it may be Buddha, it may be anyone. Some people still have, I'm using the word still, some people still have a good respect for Asaram Bapu. He can select. There is no harm. It is his own Shraddha. And the Shraddha is more important behind your meditation, not that particular person has really attained that state or not. Your Shraddha says that he has attained this Vitaragi, he is a Vitaragi. Undoubtedly, he is a Vitaragi. He will give you the effect. Actually, you get the effect of your own feeling, not the outside person who comes to give you the feeling. Asaram Bapu does not come to give you the feeling, or Buddha doesn't come towards you to give the feeling, or Ramakrishna Paramahans is not coming you to give the feeling. It is your own Shraddha gives you the feeling, gives you the effect. But you know, this is very interesting further. And this is interesting in the sense that Patanjali usually is blamed. That Patanjali talks about meditation but has not given any method or not given any subject for meditation. Although it is not correct. If you see the chapter 3, there are many subjects, topics or objects for meditation. All the objects that is mentioned there are first the objects of meditation. That is a different thing, that if you practice it and more intensified is the practice, will result into extraordinary power that you can attain as a result of your own meditation known as Sanyam. But here Patanjali is simply saying, I am giving you these different type of objects for your meditation. Now it depends upon you whether you like it or not. It is not necessary that whatever I am saying it will be liked by you. You may or may not like. If you do not like, I have got no objection. Patanjali says it may be possible you don't like. What is wrong in it? But Patanjali says you may not like the object suggested by him for meditation, but it does not give you permission. If you want to attain Chitta Prasadan, you have to do meditation. But meditation may be on the object what you like most. You select the object. There is no option in meditation. Option in selection of the object is there, possible. But whether I will do meditation or not, no option is given there. And this is very clear from the sutra, which when he writes, Yatha vimat dhyanadva. Or whatever the object that suits you most, you do that. You practice that. And what suits you most is only makes it very clear that what Patanjali wants to say, that there is no alternative of meditation. You have to do meditation. You select whatever you want to select. I have given you the freedom. But it should be undoubtedly, when he says you should be away from the negative objects and all these things, your object that you are selecting should be positive. That is not said in this particular sutra, but it can be inferred from the earlier sutras. And this way, it will make your mind pacified. I'm not going into more detail of this because there are further that now it will take you to the Samapatti and then all these things. I will be diverted. I want to come to the Samapatti in the next and after at its right place, not exactly now. I'm going to the second chapter now. And you know that in second chapter, Patanjali has given a lot of practices. I have said very first day that Samadhi Pad and Sadhan Pad, the name suggests that first chapter only talks about Samadhi and it has not talked about the technique, methods. And second chapter named is Sadhan Pad and it is talking only of the methods and nothing else is wrong. Besides the methods, in the first chapter, besides the Samadhi, in the first chapter itself, Patanjali has talked lot many things which are related with the methods and the practice. And in the second chapter again, though it is named Sadhan Pad, it has lot of philosophical understanding of philosophical presentation also. So these two are not exactly that. First is talking only of Samadhi and second is talking only of Sadhan. No. But in any case, the second chapter and the very first sutra talks about sadhana. Talks about, you know that again, this is very, I don't know how these commentators are writing. While I'm quoting the commentators, while starting the second chapter, they say that Samahit Chittasya Yoga already Vyakhyata. The yoga that is to be done by Samahit Chitta, already controlled Chitta, that I have already explained. Now for Vyuthit Chitta, that who are disturbed mind, I am explaining the second chapter. I don't agree with it. Even in the first chapter he is talking about the person who are disturbed mind. So why he is saying this way, or why the commentators are having this type of sentence, I can't understand. This is very interesting. The first sentence of the Vyasabhas, you read this any commentary, they will give you this first sentence. Samahit Chittasya Yoga iti Vyakhyata, now Vyuthit Chittasya Yoga iti Kriya Yoga, Tapaswadhyaya Iswar Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. Now coming to the point, Kriya Yoga. You have to do something. I am lost sometime the use of Tap Swadhyaya Iswar Pranidhan in the context of Kriya Yoga and again in the context of Niyam. What exactly is the fundamental relationship or fundamental difference between these two? People have tried to make reference, and that too superimposing their own thought in it. It is their own superimposition of the thought, not that the word is giving or the context is giving some different understanding. Accepting that one is appearing in Niyama, wherein you decide to do something and Iswar Pranidhan is your decision, that's all. It is not imposed. Whereas Yama is imposed, you have to do. And Niyam is always self-imposed. You decided to do. From that point of view, Iswar Pranidhan is the self-imposition, that's all. So far as the Kriya Yoga is concerned, I can understand that Kriya Yoga is the practice which one must do to get ability to go for the higher practice of yoga. That is what even Patanjali says. Patanjali says the purpose of Kriya Yoga is Samadhi Bhavanartha Klesha Tanu Karnarthascha. Why one should practice Kriya Yoga? You should practice Kriya Yoga for the sake of developing the understanding of the Samadhi, and also it will attenuate the Klesha. Intensity of the Kleshas are in four, I have already said in the earlier classes. Now, these three, Tap, Swadhyaya, Iswar Pranidhan, I think that these are wonderful instruction that is given by Patanjali. Whether the practice of Chitta Vritti Nirodha, Abhyasa Vairagya, or Iswar Pranidhan, or Ashtanga Yoga is sufficient to do anything, or it is aiming to control one and the same thing. I tell you why to go for Ashtanga Yoga. You go for only the practice of Ahimsa, it will give you the result. You don't require to practice all the Ashtanga Yogas. Only one yoga, that is Ahimsa, and you will get the result. You practice only Tapa and you will get the result. It is so nice. Patanjali is one yoga. That's why there are lot of options. They should not be understood as having some type of competition among themselves. Every person is having different type of personality, and each personality is not suitable for each and every practice. You decide, you select the practice according to your personality. Not that you have to do Ashtanga yoga. If I say this is that you have to do Ashtanga yoga, again it is wrong. You have to select. You are more comfortable with, okay, that's why in the modern time you are finding there are persons who are doing asana and they are going only for asana. But even then, the asana, if they can do it in the way what Patanjali has mentioned, it would have been sufficient. But they are not doing asana according to Patanjali's definition. Patanjali very clearly says that what it will lead to. Prayatna Saishalya Ananta Samapatibhyam. Can you imagine that? It can lead you to the state in the practice of asana itself. Tato Dvandvana Bhigata. We are practicing asana in a very, very exercise manner, a physical manner. And that reduces the effect of the asana. Every practice of Patanjali, I have come to the conclusion, every practice of Patanjali is so powerful that you need not select that, okay, whether it is sufficient or it will take me to the highest goal or not. You practice one, other practices will be such that they will automatically come to you. You will have to follow it. You will not have to think them separately. Tap Swadhyaya Ishwar Pranidhan. Tap is a very important point in the sense that you have to heat yourself and you have to do it against the will of your mind, against the resistance and the bearance of your body. And then we are doing it is called tapas. And that's why in the ancient time there was tapasya. And tapasya was containing the same concept. They were doing tapasya, bearing the all heat or cold or rain, everything equally. They were not leaving the practice because of the heat or because of the rain or because of the coolness. They were maintaining the practice. You know that Dhruva was a great tapasvi. And Dhruv became polar star. Do you know the polar star? It became Dhruva. Dhruva is just polar star because polar star never changes its position. His name was Dhruv. And he was called that, okay, we give the boon. They gave him the boon. Rishis gave him the boon, or God gave him the boon. Tapas is, if you are looking after your ailing parents, is also a tapas. You are not expecting from them anything, but you are doing it as your own duty. It's a tapas. You know about this Shravan Kumar who was doing tapasya by taking his parents on his shoulder to his all holy places. It was that tapas was being done by Shravan Kumar. And that way he says that even we people should do our work. Why this tapasya you can see, who had left the laboratory without having the proper cloth on his body, saying that Eureka, Eureka, Eureka. What was that? It was also a tapasya that he was doing. Least concerned about what he is wearing. All great mathematicians, scientists, they are a type of yogis. They have attained that feat not by virtue of just doing anything. They have put their whole mind and soul and everything on the thing that they want to understand. This is tapasya that they have done. If we want to be successful, we have to do the tapasya. We have to put our total attention, that is known as mansa vacha karmana. physically also, mentally also, every time we have to be careful. And that is called tapasya. It is not so easy. Second part that I was saying is swadhyaya. Patanjali says, tap swadhyaya iswar pranidhan, swadhyaya is to be done. You know that swadhyaya is usually accepted and given the meaning in the text, in the commentaries, that you have to study a particular chapter of any particular scripture that you want. And you have to be regular in reading that scripture. And that is called swadhyaya. They say swadhyaya means study for yourself. And I say swadhyaya means study of yourself. We are not doing study for yourself. We should study of yourself. Study about yourself. You know that we never do swadhyaya. We are very expert in paradhyaya. If we talk with any person for 5 minutes and I will analyze him and dissect him, oh, he is this type of person, that type of person, he is not good, he is bad, or he is so such and such person is very egoistic. Lot of analysis I will present just by talking only 5 minutes with that person. Have you also done like that? We are very expert in that. We meet any person for 5 minutes and I will do that. But if it is asked that can you say about yourself what you are, what you think, what you are up to? You will be you will have no words to explain because you have never done that. You know that's what I used to say. And those who are my students here, they know that very well that example that I am giving is that if you keep a book, unless you keep it in a distance, you can read it. And if you don't keep it in distance and keep it enclosed, can you read the book? We can read the book only when it is at distance. Similarly, if we want to read ourselves, we have to observe ourselves from distance. If we are always in myself and then try to study it, we can't study. And the example that I gave it, that suppose a person has worked in the film and he has gone to see his own film. In what manner he will see? His own film, in what manner he will see? He will see it as a third person. He will not be the first person or second person. And when he will be seeing the picture, he will be seeing and saying, oh, this hero is okay, but he is not doing good work. He could have done it better. Now he is analyzing his own action. If we have to study ourselves, we have to study ourselves as a third person, and then we can understand that whether my actions are correct or wrong, whether whatever I have done should have been done or not, whether this reaction was correct or not correct. If we think as first person or second person, we will always try to justify whatever I have done is correct. But when you will be a third person, then you will be more clear in your judgment that it should not have been done, or it should have been done, or it should be done in some different way. So I think that this particular concept can be practiced by every person when he goes to sleep. Go to sleep on your bed and just close your eyes and try to recollect everything that you have done right from morning to coming to the bed. You are trying to analyze yourself, what you have done in the whole day. And when you will be doing this thing for the first day, it may be that your third person observation not be correct. You will try to justify what you have done in the whole day. But as you will be more assessing yourself as a third person, you will be able to analyze yourself, what was right and what was wrong, and what should have been avoided and what could have been done better. And you will see that within 15 days of 1 month of doing this type of practice, your behavior has gradually started changing drastically. It will not change completely in 1 day or 2 days or 15 days, but it started changing, I'm saying. It is not that it will change completely. It will take time. You will have to teach yourself. You'll have to unlearn many things. and then learn it. We have learned to live with the reflex action. And then we have to make it that no, I have to do the action with thought. There are the different brains, lower brain, higher brain, always not working. Or we are working with the lower brains. Very rarely we are using our higher brains. And higher brains doesn't allow this reflex action. Higher brain always is thoughtful. It always says what to do, what not to do. Well, and the last, Ishwar Pranidhan. And I quote it, and with all respect to my teacher, my senior, not exactly the teacher, but my senior. Ishwar Pranidhan is a unique practice which is in Kriya Yoga that involves that when you are doing Ishwar Pranidhan, you are doing something physically with the God, with the worshipping. You are lighting the deep or earthen pot or this candle. You are lighting the incense stick. You are doing something with the sandalwood or something that this lot of things that are there in the pujagar we used to do, sometime blowing the conch, sometime doing the bell. All these things are there. And what for all these things are there? They are there for the sake of keeping yourself busy and concentrated on what you are doing, so that your mind is not going anywhere else. Otherwise, mind is going anywhere without our permission. Mind is so fast, it does not require our permission, it goes. We have to bring it again and again. But even while doing this way, mind goes. And when mind goes, we forget to do the things. And when we do this way, you may be noticing that when you are practicing this type of Ishwar Pranidhan, you have forgotten something to do and you have done something more that was not required. I give the example of this particular Ishwar Pranidhan in the practical field, which I was taught by one of my senior teacher in Kaivalyadham. And I cannot forget his teaching, though it does not look that it is really a teaching. I'm giving you the name, his name is Dr. Bole. And I was working with him on one project. He had given me something to write on which I had written around 3 or 4 pages or 5 pages. I don't remember, it's a long back, maybe of the year 86, 87 or something like that, almost 35 years back. He came to my office and said that, Sahai, have you written that I had given you? I said, yes, I have written. Please see. He came and sat on the chair and then said, okay, we shall start working. But before that, have you got the seizure? I said, no, I don't have the seizure. Why are you willing to have seizure? I have written something. Please see it. Why you want seizure? Oh, you don't have seizure. How are you doing research? Without research, without seizure, how can you do research? I was very much disturbed. I thought, what is going to do with the seizure when I have never learned to do this research with the seizure? Then he said, okay, have you got the gum? No, gum was not there. I said, okay, I am arranging both the things. I arranged the seizure, I arranged the gum. Then he said, okay, you know, there is a Kaivalyadham calendar which has only one side printing, other side is still blank. Bring that calendar. We will use that. Brought the calendar. I could not understand what he is going to do. And then he started reading my writing that I had written. And after reading 1 page or 2 pages, he said, Sahib, it will be better. What you have written in the 3rd paragraph, it should go to the 1st paragraph. It is really speaking the thing what I wanted to make in this project. So now what we will do, he cut that particular point. I said, okay, I am writing it again. Why are you writing? Cut it. Cut that page. It was his instruction. Write on one side of the page, not on both sides, so that he can cut. So he cut the page past that particular part and then pasted on the blank calendar at the top. Now this has become the 1st part. Go to the 2nd. Study it. Oh, what you have written in the 6th paragraph, it can go with the 2nd paragraph. And then he completely changed the whole thing. You know that what exactly he was explaining to me? He said, when you are doing this way, you are totally involved and engrossed in the article that you have written. Your mind will not go anywhere. Where from you have to cut, what you have already cut and you have printed, that you have to keep in mind. Then only you can make it reach. Otherwise, you will not be able to do that. What you have pasted, what to come next, what will be the best thing that is to be done, and they're making a sequence of the whole article, will require all the time thinking in the mind. And this thinking in the mind is the most important aspect of the Ishwar Pranidhan. This is Ishwar Pranidhan. You have to do that. And that is what I believe through this Patanjali has given us a lot of understanding that we can apply this Ishwar Pranidhan in our daily life also. Now coming to that's why I have said on first day, I've said about the karmas and karmasayas. Just some idea behind. I said on that day or yesterday also I made a reference. Klesha Moolah Karmasya Drishta Drisht Janma Vedaniya. Klesha Moolah Karmasya Drishta Drisht Janma Vedaniya. The karmasayas are at the root of the klesha. And the effects of the karma can be experienced or are being experienced in this janma, in this life, that is Drishta Janma. Drishta Janma means the life that is being undergone, that you are experiencing, that you are seeing. Drishta Janma. And also they transmigrate and they give the consequences in the next life. And for the next life, Patanjali uses the word Adrishta Janma. The life that you have not seen, but is bound to come to you. So the karmasayas are working not only in this life, they will be also working in the next life, and they will give you the different experiences. Vedaniya, experiences will be there. When the karmas are matured, in what manner they give the effect? You know that the birth itself is the result of the consequence of the karmas. Jati. But jati is not only the meaning that is associated with the birth. Birth also contains the concept that in what family I will take birth. Whether it will be a rich family or poor family, whether it will be a very highly educated family or not educated family. Lot of things are there. Jati is there coming as the consequence of your own karmas. And then comes the ayu. What will be the lifespan? And the lifespan also depends on your karmas. Some people die early, some people live very long, some people have different type. And these are all the effects of the karmas. And therefore it says that ayu is also being controlled, or they are given as the consequence of our karmas. And then comes the bhoga. This is very interesting word, bhoga. Bhoga is such a word which can be used for your undergoing bad consequences or undergoing good consequences. For both the things it is called bhoga. Because if you get a good result of your own karmas, again you are enjoying the world. And this enjoyment is called, oh, he has the bhoga and he is just enjoying the world. But you can see also there are persons who are on deathbed, are undergoing a lot of problems and miserable conditions, who are not able to take their food themselves, are totally dependent on others, and they are not able to go even to the toilet for themselves, and they are just waiting for somebody to help them. You know that this is also used as bhoga. it is called, and then the people say it is called karma bhoga. So bhoga is of two types, both the types. The karma bhoga or enjoyment bhoga. So bhoga is containing the negative and positive aspect both. Not only the positive, not only the negative. Then even if it is not negative, Patanjali finally says that everything is pain. May it be bhog that I am using. Patanjali uses the word bhog, but he makes it very clear that whatever is there, every bhog ultimately is nothing but pain. And for that he uses this good sutra. The very next sutra of this that I have just shown you is that parinam tap sanskara dukkhay guna vritti virodhacha sarvameva dukkham vivekina. Parinam dukkha, tap dukkha, sanskara dukkha. There are three types of pain. You know, this is the difference between the mythological concept of pain and also some philosophical concept of pain available in other philosophies, and the three types of pain that we find in Patanjali. You know that in other scriptures or in other philosophy also they say that there are three types of pain known as intra-organic, extra-organic and supernormal or supernatural. So when you get intra-organic pain, it is called adhyatmic dukkha. When you get extra-organic pain, it is called adhyatmic, adhibhautik dukkha. And then when you get supernormal pain, it is called adhidaivik dukkha. Patanjali says that these are, even Sankhya also says the same thing. Sankhya says, dukkhatrayabhighatat. Why I am giving you this Sankhya philosophy? This Sankhya philosophy is given in order to overcome three types of pain that is known as intraorganic, extraorganic and supernormal. But Patanjali says, no, there are three types of pain that is known as parinama dukkha, tapa dukkha and sanskara dukkha. These are the three types of pain related with our past life, present life and future life. Parinama dukkha is already we have got the consequence of our own actions, and which is in the result we have got the birth in this world. The birth in this world is the parinama dukkha, because our karmas that we have done in our past lives have given me the result, transformation, and they have given me the birth in this life. It is called parinama dukkha. When we have taken the birth and we are leading the life in this world, then we are undergoing different types of the pain that may be because of the fever, because of the different other regions, whatever the mental regions or physical regions or some other regions. Then it is called tapa dukkha. It is related with our present life. But related with our present life is not the end of the pain. There are various consequences of the karmas which have not taken, not fructified, not matured, and have not given me the result of the consequences, has not resulted into consequences. And if they have not resulted into consequences, what they will do? They are bound to give us the result of our consequences. And this is called sanskara dukkha. They will be accumulated in the form of impressions, and they will give the result in the future. So the tapa dukkha is that we are undergoing the pain that in this life. Parinam dukkha is that because of which we have come in this life. Parinam dukkha is already there, that we have already got the result. Tapa dukkha is that we are undergoing the result. Sanskar dukkha is that the result, the consequences or the pain is bound to come to us. Why it so happens? He says, guna vritti virodhacha. Because each and every guna, now here the guna is not the qualities, but the guna means three gunas, that is sattva, raja and tama. They are always in constant strife against each other, always in constant strife, that is known as guna vritti virodha. There is always a type of going on that who will dominate, and always this virod is going on, and therefore dukkhameva sarvam, because since this type of problem is going on in gunas, ultimately they reflect on us, and then we are getting the pain accordingly. When there is the dominance of sattva-guna, we are happy, but immediately the next time it becomes the dominance of rajoguna, we become very much depressed, get the pain. It may be again because of the dominance of the tamoguna that we become under the dominance of inertia, having no slothness, lazy. So he says that everything is pain ultimately. But you know that Patanjali uses a very unique word. He says that gunvritti virodhacha sarvameva, everything, dukkham eva vivekina. But this is dukkha not for everybody. It is not that even I can say that, okay, I am experiencing these as the pain. It is only for those who have some discriminative power. Vivekina. Vivekina means not that any common man will have this type of feeling. For having this type of feeling, you have to develop that discriminative power. Patanjali says how to move this, how to remove this. Patanjali has, and this is also a matter of dispute among the scholars and historians. Patanjali has presented this particular concept in a unique Buddhist style. Just as Buddha has said, there are 4 noble truths. Dukkha, dukkha hetu, dukkha nidana marga. There is suffering, there is the cause of suffering, there is the removal of suffering, and there is the method to remove the suffering. Something like this, Patanjali also has given, and therefore the approach is very similar. The term is Patanjali's, not that he has taken the term from Buddha. He has used the term heya, heya hetu, han, hanopaya. This is first the heya, then heya hetu, then comes han, and then hanopaya. You just try to see. You know that Patanjali is mentioning these 4 terms, and it is exactly representing what Buddha has said in his 4 noble truths. Heyam, that is to be removed. Heya hetu, that which is to be removed, what is the reason behind it? Han means that what is giving you, what is to be removed, can be removed permanently. There is the method to remove. And then finally, hanopai, there is the method that you can resort to and you can get the completely removal of your suffering. Because of this similarity, not dissimilarity, this similarity, because of this similarity, many people say that Patanjali was after Buddha. There are 2 such occasions on which they have the problem. In the sutra, with the sutra number 131 or something like that, Maitri Karuna 130, 133, Maitri Karuna Muditopekshanam, Sukh Dukh Punya Punya Visyanam. The word mudita is not considered a perfect Sanskrit word. It is more a word in Pali. And seems that Patanjali has taken it from there. And you know that even the Maitri Karuna Muditopekshanam, this sutra will appear in Buddhism. They have different types of meditation technique. And this sutra has been used as a good method for the technique. Technique of Maitri, technique of Upeksha, technique of Mudita, and all these things. That are the meditational techniques. On this point, the historians want to say that it is not necessary that it is said that Patanjali has taken from Buddha, Why not? It can be a vice versa. It can also be possible that Buddha has taken it from Patanjali. Well, these are the disputes, these are the problems that has been raised by historians. So far as for the intellectual mind and the mind who wants to understand what Patanjali has said, I don't think that this problem is a very serious problem. You can very well keep them away and find out your own method, what you want to do. And from this practice, it can be said that Patanjali has given some very perfect practical approach towards removal of the suffering. And therefore it is called Chaturvyuhavad. Chaturvyuha is a unique therapeutic approach in Ayurveda. You know that whenever we go to the doctor will say, I am suffering or not, and doctor will say, yes, you are suffering, you are having the problem. You know that as soon as doctor declares that you are having the problem, yes, you have the problem of this, that, whatever it may be, then undoubtedly your next question becomes, why at all this problem has come to me? What is the reason behind this problem that I am suffering? And the doctor has to convince you what is the reason. If he does not convince you, you will not be continue with that type of doctor. You will find out some other doctor. And if he is able to convince, you will continue with that doctor. If you are convinced, then the third approach comes, is it that I will be all right, I can be treated? And if doctor says, okay, let me apply some medicine, let us see what happens. Again, you will not be able to continue with that doctor. You will see that, okay, if he is making me an experimental person, then I am not be to continue there. I will find out some person who can convince that, yes, it can be removed. And Patanjali, following this concept, he has also mentioned the same way. Heyam dukkham anagatam. The dukkha that you are suffering is to be removed. Heya hetu, the pain that you are suffering is having some reason behind that it has appeared to you, has come to you. Dukkha nidan or hana. This dukkha, this pain can be removed. There is a method. Yes, it can be removed. There is what is the message of optimism. You should not be pessimistic that, okay, I am suffering from, okay, I have come in this world. I have to come again and again in this world because I am under the karmas, and karmas are always working, so it will not be stopped. Patanjali says, no, it will be stopped. And that is why he says, Hanam. Optimistic approach. I think I have said to some of my students, they may be knowing, I am a man of Sanskrit. And you know that in Sanskrit, you will not find a single tragedy. Each and every work of literature is comedy. It is very unique. Every literature is comedy, not tragedy. And quite opposite to it. Do you know the English literature? And it is more known for its tragedy, not for comedy. If Shakespeare is so popular, he is not popular for his Merchant of Venice. He is more popular for his King Lear, Julius Caesar. He is more popular for Romeo and Juliet. They are tragedies. And tragedy has made him so popular. Not quite opposite to it. You can see that Abhigyan Sakuntalam, which has kept a good tragedy in it, but it has ended in comedy, ended in the union of Sakuntala and Dushyant. It means that in India, we never think that the life is so painful, life is ending with good. That is the reason in Vedanta we find the concept of blissfulness. Satchidananda. There is the Anand even in the final stage, because we are willing to get Anand. So Patanjali says, yes, there is the possibility of removal of the pain, and finally he says, this removal of the pain is possible through the method that I am giving to you. I stop it here.